Hey everyone, it's me, Dr. Whimsy. I'm here in my offices in sunny California, and today we are talking about hot flashes. Yes, we're talking about hot flashes. They are a real problem if you are a lady of a certain age, and men too, by the way. Men also get hot flashes. So, in about 10 minutes or less, if I do everything the way I want, I'm going to tell you a little bit about a hot flash, what it is, what the symptoms are, and how we address it in my office, in my private practice. To clarify for people that don't know, I'm a naturopathic doctor. I'm based out of Los Angeles, and a naturopathic doctor goes to medical school and is trained in what we call natural medicine. We use herbs, vitamins, supplements, exercise, homeopathy, hydrotherapy, you name it. If it's natural, we like it. There are currently 5 medical schools in the United States and 2 in Canada that award the ND degree. Naturopathic doctors go through a regular pre-med training in their undergrad, and then they go through the same classes as regular medical doctors in med school. But in addition to that, we also study the natural protocols. So today I want to talk a little bit about how I use natural medicine to treat hot flashes. And I'll tell you, it's quite a common symptom. I would say that hot flashes are probably the leading symptom, one of the leading symptoms of perimenopause and menopause. Usually hot flashes begin long before menopause. And to clarify what menopause is what happens to us in a woman who has not had an ovarectomy, who has not had her ovaries removed, and is not on any kind of hormone replacement. Had a normal menstrual cycle, once a month, we'll say. She starts to see changes in her menstrual cycle, and then she has a cessation of that menstrual cycle for a period of 1 year. So if you've gone without a menstrual cycle for 1 year, at that point we say that you are in menopause. You can go into menopause early if you have had surgery. Also, certain types of medications can bring a woman into menopause earlier. Some of the chemotherapy agents, for example, can do that. But today we're talking about hot flashes, and I want to say that hot flashes occur often as the first symptom that things are beginning to change. Some women can complain about hot flashes even as early as their 30s. It's that flush a woman can get where it seems like out of nowhere your temperature rises by several degrees, and then you find yourself desperately grabbing one of these. You can get these, by the way, on Amazon for a couple of bucks, or if you have a Chinatown in your area. This is one of the first and cheapest ways to treat hot flash is simply by getting a cheap fan. Of course, I like to also get the nicer fans when I'm having a peaked moment. Okay, so say you're in your 30s, you're getting up, you're on your way to work, and you decide to have that cup of coffee that you always have before you're going to work, and all of a sudden, 10-20 minutes before you rush to work, you feel this heat come over you, and you think, my goodness, what is that? I'm feeling quite warm. Well, unfortunately for you, that could be the beginnings of a hot flash. So, why do we get hot flashes? Well, we really don't know. We do know that it is something called a vasomotor reaction. We know that I wrote this down to explain it, and I don't know if I'm going to explain it very well, but basically what happens is that the capillaries open up in order to cool the body down, because the body begins to think that it's overheating, and that is when the skin flushes, and that is when we're getting a hot flash. Accompanying a hot flash can sometimes be tachycardia, a rapid heartbeat. You start to feel your heart racing, you start to think you're having a panic attack. They can sometimes be worse at night. I've had some patients who come to see me and they think that maybe something else is going on. They'll want me to check their heart. A lot of the time doctors will do what's called an EKG, where we'll check the heart to see if there's any abnormal rhythm in the heart. It will usually come back completely normal. And that is because that feeling of heat and panic at night is simply because of these fluctuations in our hormones that happen as we get older. Now, as I said before, we do know that there's still some questions about why hot flashes happen, but different cultures throughout the world over time have treated hot flashes, and they've all treated hot flashes differently. The Chinese, for example, look at things a little different than we do in the West, but they've got some great herbs that seem to be quite effective. What they call the cooling herbs, or the yin tonifying herbs, can be very effective for treating hot flash. But the first thing I do before I do anything else is I'll do an intake, and I like to run some labs. I personally like the saliva test that I get from Labrix Clinical Services. I think they do a great job. And that's because when we do a saliva test, we're looking at the free or unbound hormones, and those are the ones that are active, and I can get a pretty good baseline if I do the Labrix. So that's the first thing I do, is the patient comes to see me, I do a baseline, we get a saliva test. I may also send them for additional labs as well if they haven't had any lab work in a while. CBC, CMP, those are just your looking at the blood, looking at organ function. We always check vitamin D, particularly as women get older, because vitamin D decline can happen, and that's associated with being at increased risk for osteopenia, osteoporosis. I also like to check B levels and folic acid levels, because definitely B complexes can help. So the patient has come in, we've given them an exam, we've ordered the necessary lab work, but how do we make them feel good right away? What can we do to help now? And the first thing we do is we look at diet, because diet is one of the things that we actually do associate with hot flashes. And there are a couple of things that can trigger a hot flash. For example, that cup of coffee that I talked about earlier, caffeine, which has to be metabolized by the liver, by the way. Unfortunately, if you love your coffee, that's fine, but understand that it is one of those things that we associate with hot flash. So if you absolutely love your coffee, that's fine, but maybe reduce intake of coffee, because it is definitely something that gets removed. The other thing we think about is alcohol. Some women will complain that even after one glass of red wine, it can induce a hot flash. Cigarette smoking, believe it or not, also is associated with hot flash. In general, I tell people that I want them to quit smoking. If you want to live healthfully, 40, 50, 60 and beyond, it starts with really a baseline of healthy habits, and that means quitting smoking, reducing consumption of alcohol, and definitely if you love coffee, that's well and good, but if you're experiencing hot flashes, you want to either reduce it or eliminate it altogether. Now, there is some supplementation that I do recommend in my women 40, 50, 60 and beyond, and it seems to be very helpful in reducing hot flashes, and there are a couple of reasons why. I like them to start a good mineral tablet, a good multi-mineral tablet, one that's high in magnesium, but also has all the other stuff in it as well. I'm not afraid of calcium because I usually give women in their 40s plenty of vitamin D, so we're not going to be seeing any spooky stuff happening with calcium being given all by itself. There was some research that came by that said that taking massive amounts of calcium could increase your risk of heart disease, but naturopathic doctors don't do that, so that's something we don't have to worry about. We always want to pair the calcium with plenty of other good minerals like magnesium, either in a 2-to-1 or 1-to-1 ratio, along with plenty of vitamin D to help with that absorption and metabolism and balancing of serum calcium levels. So I do a multi-mineral. There's a couple different brands of the multi-minerals I like. And I pair it with additional vitamin D. If you're running a vitamin D test on a patient, you can usually get a pretty good idea of how well they're doing when it comes to vitamin D levels. And in addition to helping with bone health, we also think about vitamin D being important in that age group because there is some research showing that it may have an effect on heart health and immune function. And remember that as we get older, our organs can decline in function, but our immune system can decline in function as well. So that's another reason why we want to give vitamin D. I usually start with a minimum of 2,000 international units a day, but it's not unusual for me to go as high as 5,000 to 10,000 international units a day, depending upon the results of that vitamin D test. Because people spend so much time indoors, we will often see that they have extremely low vitamin D levels. The other thing I like to do is I like to give a good B complex. I like to do the bioactive form of B complex that contains no cyanide. The methylcobalamin works great. And I like to give that with some 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate. That's the bioactive form of folic acid, along with the bioactive forms of B6 and B5. B5 is great for helping us metabolize fat, and that's definitely a challenge as we get older. We sometimes will see that bellies start to grow in women over the age of 40. And that is about it for supplementation. I did want to stress one other thing about the diet. In addition to pulling foods, there are a couple that you can add. Do not be frightened of soybeans. They are your friend. They are not your enemy. Make sure they're organic, and fermented is easiest to digest. So that's miso soup and low sodium tamari sauce would be just fine. Tempeh is also great because tempeh is easier to digest than tofu because it's partially fermented. And I like ground flax seeds, which contain omega-3s in addition to those plant sterols that are important for women's health and seem to be helpful in treating hot flashes. Last thing I want to talk about is herbs. There are a number of herbs that naturopathic doctors use. This is a company that I like, that I posed with when I did my my little thumbnail for the video, and that is Wise Woman Herbals. I think Susan Weed is amazing. She's been around for a very, very long time. She is certainly the wise woman, and I have linked her channel to this one if you'd like to know more about her work. But this is a great product she has. It's called Phytoest, and I think it's a beautiful blend. And I tell people, women who are experiencing hot flash, to give this a try, about 3 to 4 squirts in a little bit of water, about every few hours until the hot flashes diminish. And then just for maintenance, you can do it a couple of times a day. Other great companies I love Wish Garden. Also have gotten some great results from their products as well. And that is about it. That is pretty much all of my notes. Try not to stress, try to meditate, spend time in nature, and avoid tight-fitting and warm clothing. I like to dress in layers. If I'm feeling a bit peaked, I can merely remove them and and always take my little fan with me. It's quite a conversation piece, by the way. I want to thank you for watching this edition of the Dr. Whimsy video for Dr. Whimsy. Be sure and share, like, subscribe, and tell me a little bit about what you're doing to improve your health and what you have found to be helpful in treating hot flashes. Thanks for watching. Be sure and share, like, subscribe, and thanks for watching. Take care. Bye.